This is James Luxon for Pro Boxing Fans, and I'm delighted to be joined on Zoom today with Shannon O'Connell. Shannon, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Very good, thank you. Thanks for joining me today. Let's talk about, obviously, the reason you're speaking to me today. You are the ranked #1 bantamweight with the WBA, and of course, we saw the world title be claimed by Shannon Courtenay when she fought Ebanie Bridges at the weekend. Let's start with that. What did you make of the fight, first of all?
Look, I didn't see the entire fight. I did see pretty much highlights of every round, though. To me, it looked like it was a tough fight. Both girls went hard, but I personally think it looked like two novice girls just having a brawl. Like there wasn't a whole lot of skill involved at all.
What are your thoughts on the fact that that was made for a world title fight? So you've been in the game for, 10 years now? And these girls, obviously, I think 6 or 8 fights between them. What did you think?
Look, I mean, I don't think it should have been made a world title fight. In saying that, I did fight for a WBA world title, I think in maybe my 6th or 7th fight. But I was fighting against someone that was like a 7-time champion. So, I mean, it's not really the girls because no one's going to say no to that opportunity. But, you know, the WBA shouldn't really have sanctioned that fight over mine and Shanika's fight, who we were both in the top 10 in the world. So absolutely. I think maybe fighting for the gold title, we should have been fighting for the real title.
Absolutely. As you mentioned, there was Shanika Johnson with your last fight back last month. You won the WBA gold and obviously gave you that #1 ranking as well. Let's just quickly reflect on that. How did that go for yourself and how pleased were you with that?
It was a really good fight. It was like a really good display of boxing. I thought she came out very awkward, so it took me a few rounds to sort of work her out. But I think my experience in the game and having to change up, and obviously my trust in my corner really helped me with that as well. Like I definitely finished the fight a lot stronger.
Absolutely. And you mentioned obviously you fought for your first world title about 6, 7 fights in. You like I say, you've been around for 10 years. You're a record 21 wins, 6 losses, 1 draw. And you fought for world titles on numerous occasions.
Yeah.
Into the sort of tail end of your career, how much would a world title mean to you now?
It would mean so much more to me now because it's sort of more about my path, not just me taking the fight that was offered to me. So I've come down to bantamweight. I won the Commonwealth title at bantamweight and then this gold title at bantamweight. So it's sort of like, it's more sort of I'm paving my own way now rather than just taking opportunities when they sort of come my way when I'm not necessarily ready or it's not at my weight division and things like that. So it's more about my journey now, which is a lot more exciting for me.
Definitely. You mentioned the Commonwealth title, WBA gold. You did win the Australian title as well before that. So last 3 fights, all title wins. You say you've come down to bantamweight. How do you feel at the weight? It's fairly new weight for yourself.
Well, my last 2 fights have both been 10-round fights, and I've gone the distance. And in my last fight, I felt like I could have done 10 more rounds. So I don't think that the weight cut's not really hurting me too much. I in the amateurs, I fought at 51 kilos anyway. So yeah, like 53.5 is perfect for me.
In terms of, again, going back to the Shannon Courtenay Ebanie Bridges fight, I just want to get your point of view on the build-up and how they promoted and sold the fight. So, for example, Ebanie Bridges, there's a lot of talk about she sold it because of her lingerie and her weigh-in photos, etc. And if you look at her Instagram followers, she gained over 100,000 followers since the weigh-in, and she lost the fight. Who's been in, like I say, again, been in the game for 10 years, how do you feel about somebody promoting a fight in that way?
Well, look, I guess I could probably get slammed for my actual opinion because I don't have a big opinion on it. I've got 3 kids. I hold myself, I feel like I'm very respectful, and I don't believe in selling sex is a way to get women respect in this sport. Like, yes, you know, I'm not one of those girls that's ever going to say this isn't a man's sport. It is a man's sport, but I would rather gain respect doing it the right way and gain followers and get the big fights doing it and having a name that where people can say, yes, she was a great fighter, not, yeah, she looked hot in her lingerie.
Absolutely. In terms of the women's game, and we've seen it change dramatically over the last few years. Again, you've been in the game for 10 years. How has the progression of the women's side of things been for yourself, and how have you seen it change?
It is crazy. Like, I mean, even like I've been boxing for 18 years. So I was in the amateurs for a long time. And like, you know, I paid, like I went to world championships twice and I traveled the world and I paid for every trip I ever went on. Like, since it's been introduced to the Olympics, it's like women's boxing has just grown so much. And that's like, I was actually talking to someone else the other day and saying like, the girls that are coming through these days, they don't understand what we had to go through 10, 15 years ago. Like there was no support for the women, and to what they're getting now, like it's awesome, but it's still, to me, I just think if only they knew the hard yards that us girls 10, 15 years ago were putting in to get things to where they are now.
Absolutely. Do you feel a bit frustrated that it's picking up now towards the end of your career? Would you prefer to have been starting out, say, now or in the last couple of years?
I mean, sort of yes, sort of no. Maybe if it was a couple of years earlier, but no, because I feel like I'm glad that I did the hard yards. Like I was brought up, I had a hard childhood, so I was brought up doing things the hard way. So I'm glad that I still now do things the hard way. Like all my training, everything is very old school. So I'm sort of glad that I feel like I deserve it. If it comes my way, then I've done everything the hard way, and I deserve it more so than someone that's had everything handed to them.
Absolutely. Just the last one on the Shannon Courtenay side of things. Obviously, she's now the world champion. There's a lot of talk about her next fight will be against Rachel Ball. She'll be looking to avenge her loss. Ball was, of course, meant to fight for the world title originally, but pulled out due to COVID. How does that make you feel? As the number one ranked, do you know, I mean, because you'll be mandatory, will the WBA look to enforce that anytime soon, or do you feel that you won't get that opportunity next?
Look, I really hope that it gets enforced. I do know Rachel Ball is not even training properly yet because she's still unwell. I also believe that she beats Shannon Courtenay in the rematch again, probably a little bit easier than they did the first time. But I mean, I'm happy to fight her. If I get pushed out of the first defense, I'm happy to fight either of them. I'm happy to fight all three of those girls.
Who would you prefer? Because obviously, Ebanie Bridges brings the Australian side of things, obviously an all-Australian clash. Shannon Courtenay's the current champion, but as you mentioned, you feel Rachel Ball beats her. Which one of those three would you prefer to fight?
Any of them. To be honest, not really Ebanie Bridges, because she doesn't impress me. She's not even someone that I would have looked at for a sparring partner in previous camps. I do believe that Shannon Courtenay is a better fighter than what she showed on the weekend. I think she sort of just fell into Ebanie's fight a little bit too much. So yeah, either between her and Rachel. Obviously, I want Shannon Courtenay because she's got the belt right now. But if I get pushed out of that fight, then I'm happy to fight whoever, literally anyone in the world for it.
Fantastic. And just finally, I want to get a few predictions from yourself. There's a few big fights coming up on the women's side of things. May the 1st, Tasha Jonas takes on Katie Taylor. How do you see that going?
I don't know. I think it's a great fight. You know, to me, Katie Taylor's she's unstoppable. So I just think that it is a great fight. I just want to see a good fight. To be honest, I really don't care who wins, as long as it's just going to be such a good showcase for women's boxing.
And there's another fight that's been talked about after Savannah Marshall's win at the weekend. Savannah Marshall, Claressa Shields. Who would you pick, or who would you side for?
I guess you sort of have to go Claressa Shields, but Savannah Marshall she's impressive. So I think if anyone can cause that upset, it'll be her. To me, she just doesn't seem as big and strong, but I still think that it's definitely Claressa Shields' hardest opponent. So if anyone's going to bring her unstuck, it'll be her.
Is that the biggest fight to be made in women's boxing today?
Yeah, I think so. I would love to see Amanda Serrano and Katie Taylor. Serrano's been around for a long time. She's proved herself a long time, like over years, and in plenty of different weight divisions. So I'd love to see her and Katie Taylor. Yeah, I think there is some good fights to be made.
Definitely.
And I'm pretty sure all the girls are keen for the fights. It's just, you know, the obviously teams making it happen.
No, absolutely. With politics and behind closed doors and all that side of things. Definitely.
Yeah.
Shannon, thank you very much for your time today. We really appreciate you joining us on Pro Boxing Fans, and all the best for the future.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
No worries at all.